5 things that I think are important to understand when it comes to cyberspace and what we are discussing. The first is perhaps obvious to you, and not least after the discussions that we've had here today, and that is that we ain't seen nothing yet. Very many people might be overwhelmed by the pace of change and the pace of technological development, but I would argue this is just the faint beginning of what we are heading into. I think I said it last year here as well. I'm going to repeat it because I think it's important. When you hear about the 4th Industrial Revolution, that's not the key thing. What we are seeing is the last phase of the industrial age and the first faint phase of the digital age. And that is going to reshape our history and our society as profoundly as the Industrial Revolution did over a course of a couple of centuries. Figures, we can use different figures to illustrate where we are heading. My favorite figure is that within 5 years, on present trends, we will have 95% of the population of the world covered by mobile broadband with a capacity better or equal to what we have in Europe today. 95% of the population of the world will be covered. That doesn't necessarily mean that 95% of the population of the world will immediately be connected. But I would argue that a very, very high percentage of the young population of the world will be connected. That could be in a village in Senegal, or in the city of Kiruna in Sweden, or in the remote valleys of Afghanistan. It's not going to make that much of a difference, because young people all over the world will give priority to connectivity, and they will have the possibility of having it. Add to that, of course, that we are in the beginning of all of these other things that we've been hearing briefly about during the day. Artificial intelligence will start to reshape things. Blockchain is today where the internet was in the late 1980s. So where will we be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now? We don't know. But it's going to be radically different. You ain't seen nothing yet. Second point, values. The net accordingly is going to be everything. Internet of everything, internet of society, a connected society. So the values, the norms of the internet should be the values and the norms of society. We want to live in free, open, and secure societies. Accordingly, we need to have a free, open, and secure internet. And with our societies, be that India, be that Europe, or be that the US, fundamental for our society is a respect for human rights. I'm saying this because I remember I was at the first of the global cyber conference in London X numbers of years ago. And that was very much dominated by the security concerns, and they have become even more prominent since then. And I argued, yes, security is very important in our societies, but freedom is even more important in our societies. And we need to find the ways of building societies where we have both security and freedom. They are not incompatible, they need to be combined. That means that we should be careful. There should not be undue surveillance. There should not be undue censorship. There should not be undue intrusion into the privacy of individuals. And I'm saying undue, because states also have responsibilities. Some of that is necessary for the security of societies. But then it should be according to clear and transparent laws, under clear and transparent parliamentary supervision, so that the fundamental values of free societies are not endangered by the search for security. I'm saying that because there are other societies and other states and other actors also in the global debate that puts these priorities somewhat differently, and we should be aware of that. Third point, on the security of the net. We are the security of the net. We are all part of the global net. And if you look at some of the intrusions, some of the problems that we've had lately in the world in terms of what's been happening and security breaches and what that, it is amazing how naive a lot of people are when they are on the net. These famous things that we've seen in the United States, they were not particularly advanced intrusions. They were fairly simplistic things because people were not making the most simple precautions concerning their security and their behavior on the net. So a fundamental thing is that we should all know that in this ever more connected world of ours, we need to be responsible global citizens, each one of us, on our smartphone, on our laptop, in our behavior, so that not our devices, are used without us knowing it for evil or malicious purposes in the way that we have been seeing it. Cyber hygiene is going to be one of the key themes ahead, to educate each one of us, and each one of us educating everyone else on these very basic norms of behavior, of responsibility in the global connected societies. That is fundamental. Then we can discuss all of the other layers of security on top of that. But if we don't have basic cyber hygiene and responsible citizenry in the global connected world, then it's not going to work. Fourth point, which relates to industry, technological community, and innovators. It's a very fast developing scene. And innovators and entrepreneurs all over the world, and I applaud what they are doing, they are in a competitive race, because you need to be out there very fast with your product, and you need to capture the marketplace. So rush to the market and then patch it later if you see any vulnerabilities. That's not going to work any longer. That particular business model or business philosophy must be revised, because if you launch a product with vulnerabilities or with other deficiencies of the sort that we've seen also recently, then those can be exploited very, very fast by different malicious actors. So we should put as stringent requirements, and this is a question of ethics of business, requirements of ethics of business, that they don't introduce products where they are not as certain as you can be that they are safe to use and that they don't contain any vulnerabilities. If you have to patch it later, it means that you have not lived up to the responsibility that you must have. Fifth point on norms, and that is something that's been discussed quite a lot at this conference and elsewhere in the Global Commission on Stability of Cyberspace. The next of these commissions that we are working on is, of course, norms for state behavior, because we know that states are powerful things. So states have the power to do things that others don't really have. And it was noted at the beginning of this conference that we are now in a phase of development where states tend to take back power. There are dangers in that for the fracturization, the balkanization of the net, which I think would be a disadvantage. But a fundamental point is, of course, that in this world of ours, we don't have, as we have in the realm of nuclear wars and things like that, big states and medium-sized states and superpowers. Every state has the ability to be a superpower in the digital world. That means that when it comes to the norms of state behavior, I would say that the norm that should be there for every state, don't do against others what you don't want them to be against you. Because if a big state thinks that it can do things to a small state, and the big state is so powerful that the small state can't do against it, it's going to wake up to the new reality. States must understand that they all have more or less equal potential of power, and that establishes a balance of power, a balance of responsibility, where states shouldn't do against others what they don't want the others to do against them, because if they do it against others, others will do it against them, and global havoc could easily happen with devastating consequences for each and everyone.